today I would like to take a minute to sit down here with you and talk to you about a book that I have just finished listening to and I loved so much. And I have to talk to you about it because it is criminally underrated and it is such an incredible book that it deserves so much love. And I have stated in a previous video of mine, or in more than one actually, that I would make it my life's mission to shout out this book, shout out this author from the rooftops, because I want everyone to be aware of the existence of this book, this author, and everything and anything that they could possibly put out in the world. And the book that I'm talking about is The Evolving Truth of Ever Stronger Will by Maya McGregor. This is Maya McGregor's sophomore novel. Their debut is The Many Half-Lived Lives of Sam Sylvester, and I actually have a review up on my channel for that book. I recommend you go and watch it, and even if you don't want to, that is totally fine, but please do yourselves a favor and go read that book. Go listen to that audiobook because it is amazing and you are missing out if you have not read it yet. And the same goes for The Evolving Truth of Ever Stronger Will. I have mentioned this book lately in my UK book haul. I will leave the video linked again if you're interested in checking that out, because I got the physical copy. I wanted to feature it on my bookshelves because it is gorgeous. It is a work of art and I wanted to support the author, and I want to in any possible way that I can. But this book came out in 2023, July 2023, and the reason why I hadn't read it yet, the reason that I was patiently waiting and trying to keep myself away from it, is that this book, when it came out, had no audiobook available, and I wanted to try and wait. I didn't want to give up because I listened to Maya McGregor's debut on audio, and that was one of my best listening experiences to this date. The Many Half-Lived Lives of Sam Sylvester was narrated by Allegra Verlezza, and that was so well done that I wanted to wait for the audiobook of this one, and I waited for months and there was no word of an audiobook, and so I finally resigned to having to read the physical book, which would have been okay, but I was dreaming of the audiobook. And when I filmed my book haul, I went to check online for one last time, and I'm talking about 8-9 months later after the publication of this book, and I saw that the audiobook was there. The audiobook was finally there, and when I saw it, I couldn't wait anymore. I had to pick it up, and I did, and I'm in awe. I'm speechless. I'm speechlessly in awe, and I am so glad that I waited, because the audiobook, I mean, I would have loved this book anyway, don't get me wrong. I would have loved the ever-loving heart out of this book anyways, but the audiobook is narrated by Vico Ortiz, and they did such an amazing job. It literally made me shiver. It gave me goosebumps. I am so grateful. I am so grateful that the audiobook came out, and that's how I read this story, and that's what I recommend the most. If you can, please consider listening to the audiobook, because that brought this book to a whole other level. But what is this book about? This book is about Will. They are an agender teen who has had a very hard life. They were literally dumped in a dumpster by their biological mother when they were very little. And since then, they've been in the foster care system. They went from one-bed family to an even worse family, and they were physically and emotionally abused up until they ended up with Raz, an amazing, incredible woman who really cared for them, who really truly loved them and wanted to adopt them. But right when she was about to do that, Will's biological mother turns up again, apparently, allegedly sober, and she takes them away from Raz. And for the next 4 or 5 years, Will finds themselves again in a terrible household, in a terrible situation of emotional and physical abuse, and they just have to endure it. There's nothing they can do to escape it. They honestly think that they're a monster, and that's what they deserve from life. The book opens with Frances, Will's biological mother, having a heart attack, and right before she dies, she tells Will that it's all their fault. And Will is now terrified of once again falling back into the system and finding themselves in a terrible situation just when they were a few weeks away from turning 18, a few weeks away from being free of all these adults that have repeatedly failed them, of Frances, of the child protective services, of everything that has hurt them and failed them throughout their life. Fortunately, Will's best friend Hannah's older brother is an EMT, and he helps Will take care of Frances in a very legal way, but without notifying the child protective services, so that Will can try and hold on for a few more weeks and finally be out of the system once and for all. One day, while Will and Hannah are going through Frances' stuff to get rid of it, to get rid of that stench of tobacco and alcohol and rose that permeates and sticks to everything in that house that Will wants to escape, they find a small box, a box that is full of letters, so many letters written by the one and only Raz to Will. Letters in which Raz tells them that she loves them, she'll always be there for them. And when Will finds these letters, against all odds, against all reason, an idea takes shape in their mind. Maybe there's finally one good thing coming their way. Maybe they can reach out, find Raz, and even if it's been years and Will is about to turn 18, Raz can still adopt them and they can still be a family, and Will can finally have some true love in their life. They can finally have the mother that they've never had. And so that's what they do. Will and Hannah try to find Raz and see if this incredible future is actually possible. As you can see, there's a lot going on there. I have written a very long review for this book on Goodreads, and if you allow me, I would like to read something from my review, because I think I was able to put into words what it gave me, what I felt like reading this book, and I don't think I can just tell you that without reading what I already wrote. This book is a punch in the gut. This book is a silent, desperate cry of help into the void of a world that either doesn't care or is straight up against you. This book is finding your voice, your place in that complicated, messed up world. This book is a warm, comforting hug. This book is a quiet yet resilient whisper in your ear, saying you can weather this seemingly unending storm and hold on tight. There is someone right over there, beyond the dark clouds and the thunders, someone who loves you and is waiting with open arms, waiting to give you what you've been missing your whole life. This book is the odyssey and the happy ending you never thought you deserved all along. This book is the will to take up space and to exist. This is the book that I needed when I was a teenager, and when I was confused and angry and depressed, and I needed an outlet. I needed a release for all that pain that I was feeling for different reasons, but it was there, and I would have needed this so much. And the fact that this book exists now, the fact that this book is out there in the world, and teenagers, queer teenagers, non-binary teenagers can actually pick it up and read it and feel that, experience that pain, but also experience that love, that resilience, that desire and strength to fight in a world that does not accept you, in a world that tries to antagonize you every single step of the way, and to see that it can happen for you, to see that you can be happy, you can find your place, you can find your happiness, is a gift. This book is truly a gift that queer people deserve. This book is right there for you. The fact that this book is right there for them, the fact that this book is right there for us, is incredible. It's a gift, and I am so happy. I am so happy and grateful that this book exists. I loved the story, I loved the characters, I loved how it challenges privilege, it challenges the status quo, it challenges prejudice. This book tells you to insist, to keep on going, to not give up. This book tells you to challenge everything. This book tells you that it's not all black and white, that we live in a spectrum of grays and we have to find our path, our gray among all those grays out there. In our world, in a society where it seems impossible for two people with different ideas, with different perspectives to coexist peacefully, this book is the thing, the story that shows you that it actually is possible, that it is possible to have discussions and conversations and even arguments with peaceful resolutions between people who think they have it right and cannot at first understand the other's perspective. There's a beautiful scene, chapter 18, between Will and Hannah, these two best friends, where they both feel like they are right and the other one is wrong. And to both of them, it feels like it's an obstacle that cannot be overcome because the privilege is too much, because the prejudice is too much, because the other one is wrong and I'm right, and this other person hurt me and I cannot possibly get over that. I cannot forgive that because it's too much and you should have known better. It's on you and I cannot take your crap anymore. It seems like it cannot be resolved, right? Because our backgrounds are too different that we cannot possibly find a common ground and a way to solve this. But then it happens. But then you find a way. But then you put yourself in the other shoe and you understand their perspective. You understand where they came from and why they did what they did. And perhaps we can actually talk about this and we can apologize and we can forgive and we can understand from what has happened and do better in the future. We can recognize and acknowledge that it wasn't just the other person to be wrong, that perhaps we had our own faults, that perhaps we can work on some things on our end to make things better, to make sure that it doesn't happen again. And that scene just struck a chord with me because I was siding with Will, and as a reader, you find yourself, I think, siding with the main character. But then, as the story goes along, you take a step back and you try and look at the scene from another angle, from another perspective, and you realize that perhaps you yourself rushed to a conclusion, rushed to taking a stance. I loved all that. I loved Raz, I loved Will, I loved Julian. Oh my God, you precious, precious soul. They deserve the world. They deserve all the happiness. Queer people deserve all the happiness that they can possibly grasp and get from this world and out of this world. And this is a wonderful, incredible story. Everyone needs to read this. I loved it so much. Of course, this is a 5-star read. This is an all-time favorite book for me now, and I will reread it again in the future. And Maya McGregor has officially become one of my favorite authors of all time. I cannot wait to see what they write next and what comes up next, and I'll be there waiting. Possibly, just give me the audiobook as soon as the physical book comes out as well, so I can read it immediately when their next book comes out, because I don't want to find myself having to wait for months again. But that's just a little tiny ask from me personally, from yours truly. I wouldn't mind if you could please do that for me. I read and loved even the acknowledgements at the end of this book, and thanks to the acknowledgements, I found out that Maya McGregor wrote a fantasy book, a queer fantasy book under a pen name. It's called Hearthfire, if I'm not mistaken. I will put the cover on the screen so you can take notes, because I will read that soon as well. Obviously, goes without saying. Something else that I absolutely have to tell you about this book before I say bye is that this book is written in second person, and this was the first time that I ever encountered something like that, and I didn't know. I was not expecting it. It was jarring at first. Like I was taken aback, I was surprised, and I was immediately scared, terrified that it wouldn't work for me, that I wouldn't get it, that it would have been an issue, that I wouldn't have loved this book, because I really wanted to. Like I was literally scared. But I have to say, I am happy to report that it was incredible. It was so beautiful, so poetic. And now that I've read it, now that I've listened to it, and now that I have experienced this story in second person, I couldn't picture it, I couldn't imagine it any other way. This book, this story, had to be told in second person because you feel everything on your skin. The pain, the anger, the despair, the happiness, the incredulity, everything, every drop of emotion and feeling, you feel it on your skin. Every thought that crosses Will's mind, you feel it on your skin. It was incredible. I didn't think that a second person narration could do that much, could make a story all that much powerful, but it did, and it worked, and I am amazed. Again, I'm in speechless awe. That's what this book did to me. I am literally in speechless awe. Before I leave you, I want to read to you 2 quotes from this book because they give you an idea of the writing style and how just intense and powerful this book is, and how this book punches you in the gut and tugs at your heartstrings, and how you need this book in your life. First quote, and this is taken from the very beginning of the book. "Your name is Will because that's what it takes to live among people who hate you for no other reason than that you exist. So, Will the monster, here we are, and here you are. Your life is about to change. Ready?" And I think that once you read that, the title of this book takes a whole new meaning, because it's not just Will, the name of the character, but is will as in the will to exist, fight and be happy. And that just blew my mind away. It hit me in a way that I was not expecting. And the second quote that I want to read to you, I took from chapter 21, which is the chapter of a kiss. And that was the most pure, tender, wholesome kiss scene I have ever read in my entire life. You are both non-binary people in a world that doesn't want to understand you, let alone romance you. You know this, Julian knows this. In some small way, you feel a surge of defiance. Nothing else to say. I'm done. I have nothing else to add. That's it. This was it for this video. Thank you so much for watching it. Please let me know if you have read this book, because I would love to talk to you about it. And if you haven't yet, please let me know if I have convinced you to read this book, because if that was the case, I would be oh so happy. It would be the greatest gift that you can possibly give to me right now. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you soon with another video, but until then, have a good one, take care, and keep reading queer books. Warm hugs. Bye!